Hey, it's Anthony Ha with TechCrunch, and I'm here with Aaref Hilaly from Sequoia Capital. And you are a partner, a new partner. It's a relatively new partner at Sequoia.
Relatively new. I've been at Sequoia for a year.
Okay, and what did you do before?
Before this, I was an entrepreneur for 10 years. I was involved in building two companies, Clearwell and CenterRun, and both of which, it wasn't the plan, but both of which ended up being acquired for about $500 million.
That's
Good,
right? Good?
They were good outcomes. And both companies were funded by Sequoia, who were just incredibly supportive to me as an entrepreneur and helping me grow from being a pretty clueless founder to a slightly less clueless CEO.
Okay.
And so when I had the opportunity to go to Sequoia to help other founders hopefully build companies that are hopefully will be much more substantial than the ones that I built, that's what I decided to do. Right.
So, I mean, I would imagine you had, like you said, you worked at Sequoia, so you had a certain idea of what Sequoia was, how it worked.
Right.
But now you're seeing it from the other side. What would you say are some of the biggest surprises?
I think the biggest surprise to me is just how open to new ideas and how malleable Sequoia is. And so, if it's a firm that's been around for a while and has an incredible track record of working with some amazing entrepreneurs, but despite that, everything is open to re-examination, and it's a place that just is completely open to change.
So, I also want to talk a little bit about different investment areas, and I know one thing that you and I were actually talking about before, and that has sort of come up in a not entirely positive light earlier at Disrupt was messaging apps, which I think there's been some suggestion that there's really not a lot of there, and it's sort of silly that so much money is being put into these apps. And so, has Sequoia backed any messaging apps?
Yes, we're fortunate to be early business partners to WhatsApp, which is one of the leading mobile messaging apps.
Right. So what do you think about the space as a whole?
So, I didn't hear the earlier talk, which was disparaging these applications, but I don't know.
Mostly Snapchat, but and I think he's just trying to make a general point, but yeah.
Okay, well, to us, they're a pretty significant change. I mean, we see a company like WhatsApp as reimagining the social network. And the way that I think about it is, what's your real social graph? Is it the people who you communicate with and spend time with, or is it the 100 people you barely know on Facebook?
Right.
And we think it's pretty clearly the first of those, and that's what mobile messaging apps like WhatsApp capture. And that's how, if you look at WhatsApp, it's come in just a pretty short period of time to be, as Jan was saying the other day, bigger than Twitter.
Right.
Processing over 20 billion messages on a daily basis, which is just incredible. And they've done it with a laser-like focus on the user experience of everything being just clean and quick and simple and fast, or Chrome-like elegance. But beyond WhatsApp, I think the space itself is really interesting, and there are other companies doing well. If you look overseas to Korea and Japan, you see Line and Kakao and WeChat in China, and they've taken a totally different approach. They're trying to develop a platform. You open their applications, you have 24 different buttons of games and stickers. And it's totally different, but also doing very well with hundreds of millions of dollars running through their platform. So we see it as a significant new area, new category.
Do you think that it's something where, I think with other social media, that doesn't always hold true, but there's, at least at first, there's often sort of like a generational divide where sort of older people won't get it. And I feel like, with the messaging apps, I feel like I may be for the first time kind of on the wrong side of that generational divide where I don't get it, but a lot of people younger than me do.
I think it's generational and it's geographic. That a lot of these messaging apps get traction outside of the US. They're popular in the US, but people live on them outside of the US. And so I think that I think it's both factors have made the world a little bit slower to wake up to them than they have to other big trends.
So I think one other thing I wanted to ask you about was, we are here in New York. Does Sequoia have an office in New York?
We do not.
But you have some New York portfolio companies?
We do. We're thrilled to be investors in Tumblr and in 10gen, which makes a MongoDB or supports MongoDB. And we'd love to be doing more. Many of us love to come to New York. My partner Alfred is from New York. My first job was in New York when I graduated from college, and we take any excuse to come back. The great thing about New York, and I get reminded of this every time that I come here, is it is just so different to anywhere else in the world. There is nowhere else where you have such a dense concentration of creative and technical people, the arts, media, all jammed into this tight space. And as a result, I think you get companies that are unlike companies anywhere else. And we see that in Tumblr and Codecademy and in Kickstarter. And so it's very much our hope over time to make more investments in New York.
How often do you make it out to New York?
I make it out periodically. And so it's just, as the need arises.
All right, well, I'm glad we were able to bring you out this time, and thanks for joining us.
It's really a pleasure. Thanks so much, Anthony.